Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Andrews, and this is my Saving Mother Ocean podcast. And today I'm absolutely delighted to have Phil Crowder with me. And I'm sure, like everybody knows, we've got, terrible problem with plastic pollution and all this rubbish in the sea. Well, Phil is one of the people who actually goes out there. He takes real action. He goes onto his local beaches and picks up some of that rubbish that is polluting the sea and washing up on the shoreline. So, Phil, perhaps you could take over now. Tell us all about yourself, what you do, and it's over to you, Phil.
Oh, great! Oh well, thanks so much for having me here tonight. It's a great honour. I'm loving the beard, by the way. It's not, mine's not quite as good as yours, but I'm getting there slowly. But yeah, as you say, I got a great concern about the environment, not just the plastic pollution, but everything else concerning, keeping our oceans fresh and vibrant, because without the ocean, we obviously wouldn't exist ourselves. And I joined the Sea Shepherd organisation about 5 years ago. Now, I would love to be out on the ships with them, but I can't do that. So I do my bit by going on the beach and just picking up whatever litter I can. I get out there about 2, perhaps 3 times a week, and it's amazing how much litter I actually manage to pick up in, an hour and a half. In fact, it's obscene, to be honest. But yeah, I do it for local groups as well. I encourage the local Cubs, Scouts, Brownies, and men's groups and other bits and pieces to come out with me. I've got sort of 25 pickers that I can lend people. And we generally go out as much as possible and pick up what we can to do our little bit. I also do street cleans occasionally as well. My local McDonald's here in Sheerness love to go out once a month and organise litter picks, so I join in with them as well. So I'm quite busy in that respect, picking things up. And it's surprising what you find on a beach these days.
It is indeed, and as you said, this is the kind of work you can in a short space of time, you can pick up a whole load of rubbish that's being thrown away, and not just on the beach, just about anywhere. We're getting the plastic litter thrown about. And,
yeah, I mean, just my local street. If I was to walk out there now, there's probably lots of aluminium cans lying in the gutter, and other bits and pieces that people have just carelessly discarded, which really annoys me.
Yeah, it's the same here in Portugal. If I walk 10 minutes walk to the shop, I've usually got plastic bottles, thrown on the roadside, cans, all this stuff. And the sad thing is that there are actually recycling skips on the same road.
Yeah,
People could have thrown them in them, but they don't. They just throw them at the roadside. So
yeah, that's it. I mean, there is talk of what do they call it? Where you get paid for giving your bottles up.
Yeah.
Refundable scheme. They are talking of bringing one in this country here in England, and I'm hoping that will encourage people to, save their bottles up and get refunded for them rather than discarding them. I mean, at the moment, if I was to refund on all the bits of pieces I find, I could probably retire.
Yeah.
Or afford to retire, I should say, because I'm already retired.
Me too. So, yeah. So, I'm supposed to be a pensioner, retired now, and but I find I'm just as busy now as I was before. So,
yeah.
What I was going to say is, on the money back for recyclables, I remember all this used to work like years and years ago when I was a boy. You used to have like pop bottles and used to get money back on them.
Yeah, precisely. I was the same. I used to make my weekly pocket money by collecting bottles and taking them back to the shops,
Oh, yeah. Me too. And then when I was older, there used to be money back on the beer bottles and the cider flagons and all this, and all of that was normal. So
Yeah.
it would
Yeah,
be
I
nice
can't
to see that
understand.
back.
I can't understand why it ever stopped, to be honest. But there you go.
I'll tell you what, I think it was actually to do with plastic because they started bringing in all these plastic bottles, and I think that was when it went wrong.
Yeah,
I can't be sure, you know, I mean, that's just me, what I'm thinking, but
yeah. I
I
mean,
remember, sorry,
as nice as plastic is as a material, and it is quite a useful material used in the right places, but obviously it's a scourge if not recycled or used in the wrong places. You know, it's
no, completely, yeah. And I mean, it's all around us today, you know. And I mean, I don't have to look far to see the plastic I've got here. You know, I got like this laptop computer. You know, that's basically plastic. I got a mouse on this table here. That's plastic. My glasses have got plastic. So you know, all of this is plastic.
yeah,
I got a plastic lead to this microphone. It's all over the place.
yeah.
And
But it's how you deal with it once it's used that's a lot of the problem. I mean, like bags, you know, that the number of people who always say, "Oh yes, I'll have a bag," take it home and put it in a box under the cupboard. It's you know, it's used once and discarded, and that's what I really gets annoyed with is single-use plastics that don't need to be used. You know, paper bags were brilliant, so why do we now need polythene bags? Why do some foodstuffs have to be wrapped in cling film or whatever? You know, they've got their own protective layer. You know, why wrap an apple? An apple comes in a skin that's perfectly safe. All you've got to do is peel it off. But they tend to wrap them in plastic. And that's where we need to sort of address a lot of the problems, is getting people to think, well, do I really need to use this plastic? Can I use an alternative?
very good point you made there. And, you know, if you go to the supermarket today, you see so many things wrapped in plastic. And as you pointed out, the plastic bag, that comes into the equation as well, because when you get to the till with whatever you're buying, a lot of people still take a plastic bag. And I
Yeah,
mean, you can obviously take a reusable bag, and I do, but not all people do that. And at the till, the girl at the cash desk will say, you know, do you over here? They say sacco, which is a sack, a bag, and quite a few people will say, oh yes, please, and then they take a plastic bag to put all their shopping in.
yeah. I mean,
And then,
they introduced a charge. I don't know if it's the same in Portugal. You actually have to pay for a bag each time. I think it's gone up to 10p now.
that's it, right?
But people still pay the 10p and then use the bag once and or discard it. You know, I mean, I do my shopping in a couple of local shops. I've got plastic containers that I reuse each time I go to the butcher's. So I've got the containers I've had them for about 2 years now, and they're still going strong. And I use a local greengrocers who doesn't have any plastic in his shop at all. You buy your stuff, you put it in your own bag, and you take it home. Whereas you say you go to the supermarkets, even blooming bananas are wrapped in plastic bags. You know why? You know, this is what I don't understand. But the only other problem with that is it tends to be slightly more expensive to buy stuff without plastic. And again, I don't understand that, how it can be cheaper to buy it wrapped in plastic than it is to buy it loose.
You know,
You know,
that doesn't make any sense at all, does it? You know,
no,
you'd think you'd be paying extra for the plastic.
that's it. Yeah, yeah, but no. And I think this is where the government has got to step in and start legislating to make it more difficult for manufacturers, etc., to wrap things in plastic. I mean, recently Heinz beans have stopped cling wrapping their tins and are doing it in cardboard now, which is a great move. You know, it's a great move forward. And I just wish more manufacturers would start looking at things like that and doing it at a faster rate. They are doing it, but too slow, far too slow. We
Right.
need it done now.
Yeah. There's so many things we need done now. That's the word now. We need the action now, not tomorrow, next month, next year, now.
That's it.
Um, a subject that you touched on there about the beans cans, something that I'm very aware of is that cans, people think, oh, it's an aluminium can. Usually they've got plastic film inside them. So again, we've got even more plastic. And I can't remember when that started, but it's pretty general now. Just about any can of anything, if you look inside, you find a plastic film lining
That's it. Yeah. It makes it very difficult for people, like you and me who are conscious of plastic and want to reduce what we're buying because, we've got no way of knowing that the can of beans or sausages or whatever we're buying is whether it is just a tin can like it used to be in the old days or whether it's got this plastic liner. Coffee cups is another one. I mean, they're paper cups, but they've got this plastic lining, which makes them very difficult to recycle. They need to go through a special process, and that obviously is not happening. So if they end up in a normal bin, they just go to landfill because nobody can separate them out and recycle them properly. So I always take my cups back to McDonald's whenever I go and give them back to them because they send them away to be recycled properly. But a lot of people don't realise that. That's the other problem.
Well, what you touched on there, brings me to the fact that, basically there's so many products that we buy that people don't realise that there's plastic in them. And I'm just thinking of another one. It's like the tea bag. Many people buy tea bags, myself included. But, I didn't know until a few years ago that most tea bags have got plastic in them.
That's right. Yeah, they're sealed. Where they seal them with some sort of plastic. Although you can buy plastic-less tea bags now. There are, is it PG Tips have done it? Where yeah, I'm pretty sure it's PG Tips have done tea bags now without the plastic in them.
Okay, well that's a good move. That's good news.
Which was quite ironic because they still wrapped their boxes in cling film plastic, but they have now stopped doing that. They're now just literally doing cardboard boxes, which is good. Because I've noticed another one is the laundry tabs. There's a company that does laundry tabs. They used to have plastic boxes that you close with a click clack, and that'll tell people what the manufacturer is. But they've now gone to cardboard as well. So things are moving in the right direction, but it is education that we need to get over to people. People need to be told.
Yeah, very good point. Again, it's education. People need to know all this stuff. And, even those of us who are active, trying to do what we can, for me, it's a learning process. As I said with tea bags, I didn't realize that tea bags had plastic in them. I only found out because I tried to compost them and they weren't disintegrating like they should do. And I thought, what's the matter with these tea bags? And then I Googled it and I found out, okay, there's plastic in the tea bags.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I do a regular weekly radio show on Sheppey FM here on the island, and I have an environment slot. And what I try to use that environment slot is to every week give people a new way of saving from using plastic and get people to give ideas on how they can use things without plastic. I actually use your song, Where Does All the Plastic Go?, as the introduction tune to the environment slot. So, you get a plug every week as it is.
I know, Phil, and I thank you yet again for that. I really appreciate you playing my song.
Well, it brings it home to people. It's the words. If people actually sit and listen to the words, it makes sense. Yeah. And talking of songs, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before. There is a group called the Happy Somethings.
You did, yes.
Who they saw my pictures of litter that I'd picked up, and it inspired them to write a song called The Beach Cleaners. And they've actually used my picture as the front cover to the CD. So there are other people out there trying to get the message across, and using music is one brilliant way of trying to educate people.
I really agree with you, and I think that's fantastic, what's happened with the Beach Cleaners. Which brings me to something else that I remember you had some involvement with the Rotary Club where you are. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not a member of the Rotary Club, but they honoured quite a lot of local celebrities and people for their work within the community, and I did pick up one of their awards of a certificate for thanking me for my contribution. And I have taken some Rotary members out on litter picks as well. So yeah.
Well, that's great, and the reason I mentioned that is because I'm actually a member of Rotary myself, and I'm in ESRAG, which is the environmental wing of Rotary. And I recently did an article for Whitstable Views on how Rotarians worldwide are helping the environment, doing what they can.
Right.
I mentioned the Whitstable Rotary Club have done some of what you do, beach cleanups and stuff, and picking up litter. And all of this really, it's just something that I wanted to get out there, that, the Rotary clubs actually have a lot of environmentalists in them. A lot of people doing what they can to save the world, save the planet, save biodiversity, however you want to think of it.
Mm.
And I think, maybe if more people know that, more people would be interested in Rotary as such, which I confess myself, I didn't know anything about. Go back a few years, I used to know there was a term, Rotary clubs, Rotarians, but what these people exactly were, what they were doing, I didn't really know. And then in my story is that the Rotary Club of Wyndham Harbour in Australia, they found me on Instagram, and they got in touch about my plastic song, the one that you play. And they said, would I like to be featured in The Wave magazine? So of course I said, oh yes, please, so that was how I came into Rotary. And I discovered very quickly that there were a lot of other Rotary Club members who were not only interested in what I wanted to say, but take action themselves to do, all kinds of stuff. They do like tree planting and beach cleanups and basically, you name it, environmental work that needs to be done. There are Rotarians out there doing it, which is great.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I was in the Leos, which is the Junior Lions, which is a similar organisation to Rotary. So I obviously got involved in that when I was younger. But now I find I'm sort of involved with various other organisations. As I say, I'm a volunteer with Sea Shepherd, but I'm also I run the Plastic Free Sheerness campaign, which is run as part of Surfers Against Sewage. I don't know if you've heard of that organisation.
I have indeed. Yes.
Yeah, they run this plastic free campaign, and I signed Sheerness up for it, and we're trying to get the committee together and do things to get Sheerness to be a plastic free area under that. So I'm quite involved in that as well. So my time is quite limited in some respects. I mean, my dad always used to say to me that when he retired, he was busier than he ever was when he was at work. And I never understood it. And I retired at 55 a few years ago. And I now understand what he meant, because I'm literally busier now than I ever was when I don't know how I fitted work in, to be honest.
Well, I understand that because, like I said earlier, I seem to be like even busier these days. I'm doing so much, So
Yeah.
I do understand that. But I'm glad that you touched on Surfers for Sewage, because I mentioned them in my book, Saving Mother Ocean, and I've mentioned them in a past article I did for Whitstable Views.
Yeah.
But on the subject of sewage, that was something I wanted to ask you about. I mean, what do you make of it? I'm personally just horrified, depressed, saddened, shocked, whatever, with the state of the rivers in Britain at the moment. I mean, it's awful.
Yeah. I mean, I still cannot understand why in this day and age, and with all the technology we've got, that we're still pumping raw sewage into the ocean. It just beggars belief that, sophisticated as, advanced as we are as a human race, that we're still chucking the sewage into the water where people swim and where your dinner could come from, in effect, if you enjoy fish. It just doesn't make sense. So, and I think something needs to be done to bring the water companies to, to Bill, you know, to get them to stop and look at the system as what's going on.
Oh, I totally agree with you, and I'd just like to give a shout out for Fergal Sharkey. I'm sure you know Fergal Sharkey.
Oh yes.
He devotes a whole lot of his time these days to speaking out about all this, about the pollution of the rivers, pollution of the seas, and because of who he is, he gets media coverage, and he's doing a really great job of talking about these issues. Well, I think we're going to have to close this show fairly soon, because we try to keep it fairly short to keep people actually listening to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, good.
But before we go, I'd just like to to ask you, perhaps you could talk about your radio show a bit more. I mean, what just tell us about the radio show.
Well, it's a community radio station called Sheppey FM. We've been on the FM itself for about 5 years now. We were previously internet only before then. I've actually been a presenter with them. It'll be 10 years in March, actually, since I started. So, 10-year anniversary coming up. I currently do a show called The End of the Week Show, which is on a Sunday night from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. And I play indie, alternative and electronic music, but basically all new stuff, as much local talent as I can find and to play. But other than that, I play tracks from all around the world, basically. I have an environment slot, as I say, which is about 5-6 minutes long, where I just chat about, what's new in the world of environmental bits and pieces. Up until recently, I used to have a poet come in every week as well to read poetry. But what with COVID coming in and that, we had to sort of knock that on the head. But there is something I might try and get back to, because I do enjoy a bit of poetry as well. But you can get it. You can listen on the FM, or you can tune in via the website or TuneIn app or whatever. And then on Mixcloud, after the show is put up again so people can listen to it again. There's about 260 shows up on Mixcloud at the moment for people to listen to.
Well, I think that's absolutely brilliant that you've got all those shows that people could listen to. And I wanted to say as well about the poetry. I like a bit of poetry myself, but that's because I am a poet, so I should like poetry. And having said that, I'd just like to thank you so much for being on the show today. And I really appreciate all the work you're doing. And I just wish there were more people in the world, taking the action that you're taking, to help clean up all the mess that all of us are making. Because that's why, my song, Time for Ocean Aid, I say, when I think of all the mess we made, I think it's time for ocean aid. And that to me is what I wanted to say. And as I say, thank you, Phil, for all you do. Thank you for being on the show today.
That's all right. That's lovely. I just like to say, I don't want one person to do everything. I'd like everybody to do something. And that's the way to go. Yes,
that's the way to go.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's been very enjoyable. Lovely to see you.